Have you ever heard of an empire that collapsed because of one sentence? It sounds like something out of a movie, but it actually happened. November 9th, 1989. The world was holding its breath. The Cold War, a 40-year standoff between two superpowers, seemed like it would never end. And at its heart was a city divided by a wall of concrete and barbed wire. Berlin. For decades, the Berlin Wall wasn't just a physical barrier. It was the ultimate symbol of oppression, separating families, friends, and a nation. Crossing it meant risking your life. But on that one fateful night, everything changed. Not because of a grand battle or a signed treaty, but because of a tired, unprepared politician and a slip of the tongue at a press conference. This is the incredible story of how a single mistake brought down the Berlin Wall and cracked the foundation of the Soviet Empire in a single night. Let's set the scene. By late 1989, the Soviet bloc was crumbling from within. Countries like Poland and Hungary were already making moves toward democracy. East Germany, the GDR, was facing immense pressure. Every day, thousands of its citizens were fleeing the country through newly opened borders in neighboring socialist states. The government was in chaos, trying to figure out how to stop the mass exodus without resorting to the brutal violence of the past. They decided to loosen travel restrictions, hoping it would appease the public and encourage people to stay. The plan was to announce new, more relaxed travel regulations. It was supposed to be a controlled, gradual process. A draft of the new policy was written up, stating that East Germans could apply for visas to travel abroad, and these would be granted in an orderly fashion. The new rules were scheduled to take effect the next day, November 10th, to give border guards and government offices time to prepare. But history had other plans. The task of announcing this new policy fell to a mid-level government official named Günter Schabowski. He had just returned from vacation and hadn't been fully briefed on the details. He was handed the press release just moments before he walked into a live, televised press conference. The conference was long and, frankly, quite boring. Reporters were asking mundane questions, and Schabowski was giving equally mundane answers. Then, toward the end, an Italian journalist named Riccardo Ehrman asked a crucial question. What about the new travel regulations? Schabowski, looking a bit flustered, shuffled through his papers. He found the document he'd been given, but hadn't had time to read properly. He started reading from it, explaining that private trips abroad could now be applied for without prior conditions. Then, a reporter shouted out, "When does this come into effect?" This was the moment. The single point in time where history pivoted. Schabowski, tired and unprepared, scanned the document again, couldn't find a date. Instead of admitting he didn't know or clarifying that it would be announced later, he made a fateful assumption. He looked up and said the words, "That would change the world as far as I know. It takes effect immediately without delay." Immediately, without delay. The reporters in the room were stunned. Could this be real? They pressed him for more details. Does this apply to Berlin as well? Schabowski, now completely off script, confirmed that yes, it applied to all border crossings, including those in Berlin. The news exploded. Within minutes, West German television channels were leading their broadcasts with the headline, "The Wall is Open." In East Berlin, people watching the news couldn't believe their ears. For nearly 30 years, they had lived in the shadow of that wall. It was a permanent, terrifying fixture of their lives. And now, a man on TV was saying they could just cross it. At first, there was hesitation. Was it a trick? A cruel joke? But as the news spread like wildfire, a few brave souls decided to find out for themselves. They started walking toward the border crossings, like the one at Bornholmer Strasse. When the first handful of people arrived, the border guards were completely bewildered. They had received no new orders. Their instructions were clear. No one crosses without proper authorization. They tried to call their superiors, but the phone lines were jammed. No one knew what was going on. The government officials who had caused this chaos had simply gone home for the night, assuming everything would proceed as planned the next day. But the crowd was growing. What started as a few dozen curious onlookers quickly swelled into hundreds, then thousands. They were all chanting, "Open the gate, open the gate." The atmosphere was electric, a mixture of hope, fear, and sheer disbelief. The guards were vastly outnumbered and in an impossible position. Their standing orders included using lethal force to stop people from crossing. But how could they shoot into a crowd of their own people? A crowd filled with families elderly people, and children, who were peacefully demanding what a government official had just promised them on live television. The commander at the Bornholmer Strasse crossing, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Geiger, was facing the decision of a lifetime. He was desperately trying to get clear instructions, but no one in the chain of command would take responsibility. The pressure was immense. The crowd was pushing against the gates. He feared a stampede, a crush that could kill people. Finally, around 11:30 p.m., after hours of agonizing tension, Geiger made a unilateral decision, told his men, "Open the barrier." The moment the gate swung open was surreal. For a few seconds, nobody moved. They just stared, unable to process what was happening. Then, the first person stepped through. Then another. And another. Soon, a flood of people poured into West Berlin. There were tears, cheers, and hugs. Strangers embraced each other. People who hadn't seen their families in decades were suddenly reunited. West Berliners, hearing the commotion, rushed to the wall with flowers and champagne to greet their countrymen. People climbed onto the wall itself, dancing and singing in a spontaneous celebration of freedom. The dam had broken. One by one, other border crossings followed suit, overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. The guards, without orders from the top, simply gave up and let everyone through. The state's authority had evaporated in a matter of hours. The most heavily fortified border in the world, a symbol of division and tyranny, was rendered obsolete, not by an army, but by a mistaken announcement and the courage of ordinary people who dared to call the government's bluff. The night of November 9, 1989, was the beginning of the end for the German Democratic Republic and a major turning point in the Cold War. The collapse of the Berlin Wall demonstrated that the Soviet Empire's power was a house of cards. Once people realized they were no longer afraid, the entire system fell apart with astonishing speed. Within a year, Germany was reunified. Soon after, the Soviet Union itself dissolved. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't always made by grand plans and powerful leaders. Sometimes it's shaped by accidents, by confusion, by a single sentence uttered at the wrong time. It's a story of how the collective will of the people, sparked by a simple mistake, can topple even the most imposing symbols of oppression. The fall of the Berlin Wall wasn't just the destruction of a physical barrier. It was a victory for human spirit, a testament to the universal desire for freedom. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as incredible as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating moments that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what you think. Could something like this ever happen today? See you in the next video.